All right, in this section, we're going to be talking about both nucleic acids and lipids. So again, we're focusing on 4 types of organic molecules that are in abundance in living organisms: our proteins, carbs, lipids, and nucleic acids. Now, you've already studied nucleic acids in past science classes, so you probably know a little bit about DNA or maybe RNA. And remember that Na means nucleic acid. And these nucleic acids are made of small molecules that are joined together into really, really big molecules like DNA and RNA. Now, those monomers needed to build DNA and RNA are called nucleotides. And again, remember, monomer means one. So these molecules, DNA and RNA, are many of these monomers linked together. So let's take a look at what that means. So in this molecule of DNA is double-stranded, and it's made of monomers called nucleotides. Here is one nucleotide, and then it's bonded to or chained to another nucleotide. So each of these squares are a single nucleotide, and you can see them over here. So this part right here would be a nucleotide. Now, what does a nucleotide really look like? Well, up here I kind of zoomed in on nucleotide, and nucleotide has 3 parts. A nucleotide is actually kind of 3 small molecules put together into one molecule. So our 3 parts are, there's a phosphate group, is usually what it's called. There is this part, which is a sugar in DNA. It's deoxyribose. That's why it's called deoxyribose nucleic acid. And you know it's a sugar because it ends in ose, right? And then you have this molecule over here, which has a lot of nitrogen in it. And if you remember, nucleic acids contain C, H, O, P, and N. So hopefully you can kind of tell now where you're going to find those elements. Here's that phosphate in that phosphate group. The sugar is going to be carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. And then finally, the nitrogenous base. So this ring right here is made with a lot of nitrogen atoms. So that's where the C, H, O, P, and N come from, which we learned earlier. Now let's go back to our DNA here. So now we know that each one of these is a nucleotide. So DNA is built from several nucleotides. RNA, same thing. But it's single-stranded. It's just one chain of nucleotides. So let's indicate over here, this is a nucleotide as well, just an RNA nucleotide. Now we have an entire unit that is dedicated to DNA and RNA and what they do. This is just an intro. But what I want you to remember about DNA is it is a person's genetic information. Now you might wonder, what does that mean? Like, how does DNA determine your traits? Well, it does it by coding for the building of different proteins. So DNA is really just the instructions, or sometimes we say DNA is the blueprints because it tells your cells how to build every protein that you need for your different structures, for your different reactions. So when I think of the DNA, I think of it's just the instructions. It's the blueprint. Now, RNA, once again, we're going to learn much more about RNA. RNA is like the worker. So RNA reads the DNA, and then the RNA is going to be able to then assist with the actual making of the protein, okay? So one thing I want to point out is DNA is a nucleic acid. It's not a protein, but it does give you instructions for building a protein. What those instructions really are, it's just the order of the bases. You've maybe learned that these bases, there's 4 types. There is adenine, I'm just going to put an A. There is thymine, there is guanine, and there is cytosine. And each nucleotide has one of those bases. So if we have an adenine base on this nucleotide, then thymine is always paired up with it. And if we have a guanine, it is always paired up with the cytosine. So you might remember the stick letters go together, A and T. The curvy letters go together, G and C. Some kids remember apple in the tree and car in the garage. And so if there's a C right here, then the G's on the other side. And then if there's an adenine on this side, then there's going to be a thymine here. So those are the bases, and it's the order of these bases, which is instructions for building proteins. If you change this to an A and a T, then the protein that cell is going to make might look totally different and might not be able to function as it needs to. Now the last nucleic acid that we're going to look at here is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So I want you to circle the T there, and we're going to write tri, and that P stands for phosphate. That's going to give you an idea of what this molecule looks like. Now we've already mentioned ATP before. ATP is the form of energy that your cells need for the reactions. So we say that it's a molecule that provides, I'm going to put usable chemical energy. It's usable chemical energy for cells. Gasoline is also chemical energy. Actually, let's just do usable chemical energy. So gasoline is a form of chemical energy, but it's not in the form that's usable by cells. Electricity is a form of energy, but again, that's not in the form that cells can use it. So energy has to be in the right form, otherwise it can't be utilized by something. Now, we kind of talked about what a nucleotide is. ATP is a modified nucleotide. So let's just indicate it's basically a nucleotide that's been slightly altered. It is a nucleotide that has 3 phosphates on it. So let's take a look at some ATP down here. So this is our ATP molecule. You might indicate right here. There's ATP. And notice we've got 3 phosphates. So let's indicate there's 3 phosphates. When a cell needs energy for reaction, this phosphate can be removed. And when that bond is broken, that energy that's in that bond can be used to provide energy for a reaction to happen. Okay, so that's what it means, kind of like this energy is released, and this energy is now available for a reaction to take place. So this is showing you now we don't have 3 phosphates together because one got removed. So again, to use ATP, we break that reaction, the phosphate comes off, but that energy that was stored in that bond gets released and it can be used to provide energy for reactions. Now, this molecule that I have here, I can't call it ATP anymore because it doesn't have 3 phosphates. So I want you to circle the D. This is ADP. D means di. So this is adenosine diphosphate. We've got 2 phosphates there now because that third one was removed. So that's the difference between ATP and ADP. It's the same molecule. It's just when we take a phosphate off of ATP, we have to call it something different. It's now ADP. Okay. Now, how we get ATP back for further reactions? Simple. The mitochondria can take ADP and reattach the phosphate on it. So that's why the mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell, because it has the ability to make ATP. Now, I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to abbreviate. Really, all that mitochondria does is it takes ADP, it's going to put a phosphate back on it, and then it makes that ATP back for the cell to use. But this reaction, for this to happen, that mitochondria needs to get some energy somewhere for this reaction to take place. And that energy comes from food, specifically glucose. So we learned in this unit that glucose is food. It contains energy, but the energy is in the wrong form. For our cells, we need energy in this form, ATP. So let's show that that mitochondria is going to take in the glucose. It's going to break the glucose down, And that releases energy for the mitochondria to take ADP and phosphorus and put them back together to reform ATP, okay? Now, there's also some other things that are released. So when we break down glucose, this is what's left of it. You got CO2 molecules and water molecules that will get released from that reaction, and energy, but that energy is used to remake that ATP. Now, this process, we'll learn way more about it. So when a cell is breaking down glucose and using the energy to make ATP, that process is called cellular respiration. It's called respiration because that mitochondria is also going to need you to breathe in some oxygen. Otherwise, it can't take that glucose and generate a lot of ATP. And so that's why it's called cellular respiration. And we say cellular respiration happens in the mitochondria. Of our cells. All right, so now we're going to talk about lipids. And lipids is a scientific name for fats and oils. And we know that those molecules do not readily mix in water. So many of our lipids are non-polar molecules that do not dissolve. Now, to make lipids, we are going to put together some monomers here. And the monomers needed to make them are those fatty acid chains. Or you can just say fatty acids, that's fine. Now, when it comes to lipids, there are 4 types of lipids in the body. I want you to remember triglycerides. We're going to start with 3, 2, 1, and 0. That might help you remember. There's 4 classes of lipids. Think 3, 2, 1, 0. So our triglycerides have 3 fatty acid chains. I think you can see them pretty easily right down here. So there's those 3 fatty acid chains. And this molecule is primarily used for energy. It can circulate in the blood, and it can be taken in by your cells. And your cells can use it as well as glucose to generate some ATP. So that's why we say fat triglycerides are an energy source. If you have many triglycerides and you don't need them right now, then you can store them in your fat cells for some other time whenever you do need some energy and you're out of glucose. Now, fats also have some other, provide some other benefits to living things. So fats provide insulation from the cold. Whales and other Arctic animals, they have lots of blubber, and that prevents them from getting cold in those environments. And fat also offers protection. So if there's some trauma to like your midsection, that fat that's in that area will protect your vital organs from that damage. But one thing that's bad about our triglycerides, if you consume a large amount of triglycerides in your diet, your liver it kind of messes up the breaking down and the metabolism of cholesterol, which we'll talk about here in a second, and that cholesterol can clog your arteries. So that's why we say that an excessive amount of triglycerides in your diet can lead to clogged arteries in your heart, and that then can lead to cardiovascular disease. So let's take a look at the second type we're going to look at here, are phospholipids. And remember, we've mentioned that there are some lipids that have phosphorus in them. And so here it is right here, are phospholipids. Our triglycerides just have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Same with our waxes down here. So let's put C, H, and O. And same with our steroids. And remember, for these 3, how you can tell the difference between those fats and carbs is you're going to have lots of C's and H's, a really high ratio of C's and H's compared to the O's in all those. So I'm just going to box in those and indicate lots. So many more C's and H's compared to those O's. All right, so let's take a look at our phospholipids here. Now, phospholipids are commonly drawn like this. We have a part that we call like the head part, and then we have two fatty acid chains. Now notice one is straight and one is kinked. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But what you need to know about phospholipids is that they come together and they make up a structure in your cell. Specifically, your cell membranes are primarily made of phospholipids. And the way that they arrange, if they are put in an environment with water, is there'll be two layers of them. It's called a bilayer. So if you look here, we have one layer of phospholipids, and then you have another one together. And so that's why this is called the phospholipid. This is called the bilayer. This is what your cell membrane is made out of. It's a phospholipid bilayer. All right, so let's take a look at our waxes here. Now you've probably heard of beeswax or earwax, and really what it is for is it offers some protection. If bacteria or fungal spores or debris get in your ears, sticks to that wax, and then as you make more wax, it pushes that old wax out. But also, it's for protection when it comes to plants. They have a wax that helps keep the bacteria out, and it keeps water in, so they're less likely to lose water. And we even make a wax. So we have, if we want to indicate, our wax that we make in our skin is called sebum, and that keeps, again, moisture in, kind of like here with our plants. And so if you don't make a lot of that wax, then your skin oftentimes is dry and cracked. And then you don't have that protection anymore because bacteria and other microbes can get in there and can cause infection. All right, last thing we're going to look at is our steroids. And steroids have 0 fatty acid chains. Instead, they have what's referred to as 4 fused carbon rings. Remember, every corner there is a carbon atom. So that's what I mean by these carbon rings. I'm just going to put them on there real quick. You don't have to put them all if you don't want to. Now, some common steroids that you've probably heard of include some hormones like estrogen and testosterone. They circulate in the blood, and they can bind to specific cells, and that causes those cells to do different things. And cholesterol, that molecule, that fat we mentioned earlier that can clog your arteries, it's considered a steroid. And cholesterol gets a bad rap because, like I said, it can cause buildup and can lead to strokes or heart attacks. But cholesterol is necessary. It is a major component of cell membranes as well. So let's kind of draw an arrow back up here and take a look at that cell membrane. So we have these phospholipids, the circles with the 2 tails, but you see embedded out are these kind of, you can see that it looks like we got some carbon rings there. That would be cholesterol. So cholesterol is an important part to your cell membranes. We'll talk more about cholesterol and exactly what it does, but you do need it to build your cell membranes. And the last thing we want to talk about, since we're talking about fats, we want to talk about fats that are good for you, and then fats that aren't so good for you. Now, your foods that have the good fats, those good fats that we're talking about are unsaturated fats. These foods are going to be liquid or your oils at room temperature. So let's think of the oils that you cook with. There is canola oil, vegetable oil, corn oil, sesame oil. I can go on and on and on. Olive oil. So these oils are triglycerides, and those fatty acid chains don't go straight. They are kinked. And that's the reason why that they remain a liquid at room temperature, is because they can't pack close together because of those kinks in their fatty acid chains. Now, on the contrary, the bad fats are the saturated fats. And I like to remember saturated fats will lead to saturated arteries, clogged arteries. And we don't want that. These fats are going to be solid at room temperature. So let's think about fats that are solid. So we have butter, okay, and then your other animal fats. So let's think about if you cut off fat from chicken or from steak, ham, etc., then we've got, those are solids at room temperature. Those are your bad fats that you would want to avoid. Again, the difference between our unsaturated liquids and our solids is it has to do with those fatty acid chains. So our saturated fats, I'm just going to show you down here. See how the fatty acid chains are straight? So then they can pack closer together, and that's why they're more likely to exist as a solid. But over here, two triglycerides that have unsaturated fatty acid chains, they are more spread out. So therefore, they're going to be more of a liquid. Okay. And really what that bend is if you take a look in this area, in our fatty acid chains here, you're going to have where our carbon atoms aren't completely surrounded by hydrogens, you get a double bond there and it leads to a kink in that fatty acid chain. So here, all of our carbon atoms are surrounded, they're saturated by those H's. There is no double bonds, so you're looking at a saturated triglyceride, a saturated fat. It's going to lead to a solid being formed at room temperature. So we already said that we can get a solid at room temperature because they can pack close together. And your good saturated fats, your good triglycerides that are unsaturated, they're going to be liquids at room temperature.